20 years ago, using the internet was unfamiliar to the majority of the population, and at that point, very few could have predicted that the industry would grow into the colossal global networking medium that it is today. Lifelong astronomer and professor at the University of Arizona, Chris Impey, argues in his book Beyond that space tourism will become what the internet was 20 years ago. Like the internet, space tourism would blossom into a multi-billion-dollar industry, becoming available to the general public and revolutionizing the human experience. Impey claims that within the next 5 years, going into space will no longer be a luxury of the government and elite, but for nearly all people, just as it is today for the internet. But there's a long way to go before you or I will be traveling beyond Earth's orbit. Simply put, space tourism is a commercial industry, private or public, where people purchase tickets to be brought into the extraterrestrial world. This market has plenty of room for growth in the coming years as a result of projected public interest. The only trouble will be avoiding asteroids, like costs and regulations. But because we could be experiencing these feats in the near future, today we will examine the origins of modern-day space tourism, the industry-changing applications and implications leading to a dynamic population shift. Because as Forbes News stated on July 6 of 2017, with a market like this, our world could be changed forever. In much the same way as the internet did take time to become popular among society, space tourism is getting through that process right now, warranting us to examine the origins of modern-day space tourism, which involves first the early stages and second, the government restrictions that ensued. The origin of space tourism was the purchase of a ticket by United States millionaire Dennis Tito on April 28th of 2001, according to Space.com, which monitors all international space-related accomplishments. Zero Hedge News reported on March 23rd of 2017 that previously scientists and astronomers believed the only money to be made in space was off of the materials mined of extraterrestrial bodies. But now there was a market for space without leaving Earth's orbit. Nonetheless, even though these monumental constructions have been going towards space tourism, there have been some fatal flaws as well. That same BBC article stated that Virgin Galactic, a private space company, suffered a fatal accident in 2014, just one of nearly a dozen the market has seen. After this occurrence, the company lost an abundance of followers and faced major financial setbacks. These setbacks have been inhibiting space tourism from reaching what it was at one point projected to be. Next, space tourism was slowed as a result of necessary safety regulations put into place by our government as a safety precaution. Stephen Hogue wrote of some of these policies in his report for the Nebraska Law Review of 2007, titled Legal Aspects of Space Tourism, which highlights that most United States companies currently abide by the Spaceship One model, stating that all space tourist trips must have a detachable rocket that returns to the location of liftoff. Additionally, as long as waivers are signed 90 days prior to the trip, these companies may assume as much or as little liability for the safety of the passengers. The likely reason behind such forcible government actions is pointed out by Space Daily, updated daily, which states that as these continual trips for space tourists continue to rise, so does the construction of governmental setbacks, and they're trying to take every precaution possible. This is why the Office of Commercial Space Transportation, commonly known as AST, issued the Space Launch Amendment Act, which uses diction allowing the government to halt all operations at any sign of a hiccup. Understanding now the origins of space tourism, we can look to what the market is doing today when identifying the industry-changing applications, which involves first, the journey that people take, and secondly, the innovations for rockets. As it stood on July 17th of 2017, just over 600 people have traveled above the Kármán line, a point 62 miles above Earth that marks the beginning of space. While the vast majority of these travelers were in fact astronauts, space tourists actually account for 47 of them. Additionally, when these travels began, they were occurring about once every 3 months, or only 4 times a year. But today, people are surpassing that same Kármán line once every other week. In addition, though, to the frequency of travel going up tremendously, other markets are sprouting as a result of this industry. Specifically, Trend in Tech, a news agency who reports on new inventions, mentioned that entrepreneurs Ted Sutner and Nikolay Mazev are co-founding a new company called the Final Frontier Design. These two will be creating what is going to serve as the likely suit of apparel for travelers in this fresh market, managing to revolutionize the industry. In addition, though, to what the market is doing today, innovations for rockets are revolutionizing this adventure, because the least efficient part of these spaceships is the rockets themselves. But in a teleconference with NBC News, multi-billionaire Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, decided that they were going to target this least efficient part of the spacecraft. And they were going to do it by creating massive Falcon Heavy rockets as part of their future Dragon ship designs. These rockets would detach from the spaceships, returning to the location of liftoff, in accordance with the Spaceship One model mentioned earlier, with a caveat: reuse up to 12 times. If this initiative falls into place, our world could be forever changed, as prices will shoot down tremendously, allowing maybe even you or I to travel on these ships. Knowing now that the market is on the rise, it will be very exciting to begin exploring the implications leading to a dynamic population shift, by understanding first how space tourism divides our classes, but second, how it manages to unite us as well. In terms of division, one can really note that space tourism has done a tremendous job of cementing the classism in America. When Franklin D. Roosevelt decided he wanted to make the space race a legislative priority, he affirmed that we would land men on the moon within the decade. And while FDR was not around to witness that feat, it did become a reality. And just like space tourism was united then, it could be united in the future, but not until some time takes place. As AV Jobs reported in 2017, in February of 2017, they said that traveling through space to another part of the globe could become a very integral part of our society. Upon taking this initiative into consideration, they stated that the current day flight from London to Sydney, Australia takes 22 hours. Imagine that same flight taking only 2 hours. This will be the initiative of Virgin Galactic, who is currently focused on commercializing their space tourism jet to take people through space to another part of the globe. The only problem is, it will only be available to those able and willing to supply the funds. These trips will be astronomically high, and as that AV Jobs article mentioned earlier has stated before, when flying began to become an integral part of our society, it was only available to the upper class. The same thing could be happening with these new technologies, allowing the digital divide to continue to occur. Those who already have access to this great technology will extend their access beyond our world, while those without it will be left struggling to survive on the basic needs for survival. While space tourism, though, could initially divide us, it could end up uniting the masses as well. When FDR made that affirmation, he decided to unite American interest in space. And the same thing could be happening today. As we continue to grow more and more separated in a digital world, where people communicate through continents, but primarily through their phones, it is very, very essential that we take the initiative to continue face-to-face interaction. While these flights initially will be only available to the upper class, as they continue to fall in cost, people like you or I may be able to travel across the globe in a matter of hours. This initiative could change our world forever, managing to alter the human race and creating a new adventure for our species to explore. Throughout all of human evolution, the idea of what was beyond Earth has shifted. And now that scientific breakthroughs are on the verge of becoming a reality for normal citizens, we're going to be able to answer those questions ourselves. So today we began by exploring the origins of modern-day space tourism, the industry-changing applications and implications, leading to a dynamic population shift. Because in the world of space tourism, it could be altering our universe forever. We just need to take the time to make sure that it's a strong initiative.